Welcome to our conversation today. We're going to dive into some really important ideas about how people connect in relationships. All of these ideas come from a thoughtful book by Mindy Rivers called Understanding the Dismissive Avoidant Attachment Style. It really helps us see how different ways of connecting can shape our lives and our love stories.
That's right. This book helps us look at patterns that might feel confusing at first. We'll explore why some people who tend to be more independent, what the book calls dismissive avoidants, often end up with partners who really want to be close. It seems like a puzzle, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. If someone prefers to be alone or very independent, why would they be drawn to someone who wants lots of togetherness? It feels like they're choosing the opposite of what they need. Can you help us understand that contradiction in simple terms?
Of course, the book explains that even though closeness can feel scary to someone who is independent, they often still want love deeply. They want love to feel safe, though. Partners who like closeness can offer a kind of warmth and steadiness that the independent person secretly wishes for. It's like they're thirsty for it, even if they can't say it out loud.
So they're attracted to the very thing that later might make them uncomfortable? That's a powerful point. The book mentions that this attraction isn't always about logic, it's about feelings.
How does that play out? Yes, it is often about feeling. Imagine someone who grew up in a place where people didn't show much tenderness. Then they meet someone who naturally offers warmth and kindness. That feels like a soft place to land. It's like finding water when you've been really thirsty. The independent person might not know why, but their body feels relief and they're drawn in. That makes sense. It sounds like a doorway into a softer life, as the book puts it. And it also talks about how being wanted can feel really good. Many independent people have a quiet unsureness inside, even if they look strong. Being pursued, having someone reach out to them, temporarily makes that unsureness go away. Is that right?
Exactly. When someone else is showing interest, the independent person doesn't have to risk showing how much they want connection. They can receive attention while still feeling safe. In the beginning, this can feel very good. Like flattery, they feel chosen without feeling too exposed or vulnerable. Also, the partner who wants closeness often does the emotional labor, like asking questions and remembering details, which the independent person enjoys because it feels easy.
So they let the other person do the work of connecting, and that feels easy and good. The book gives an example of someone who's warm, asks questions, remembers details. The independent person relaxes into it. For a moment, love feels simple. But then it also says, this attraction often plants the seed for future problems. What happens next?
Well, partners who like closeness tend to want more closeness over time. What felt like affection in the beginning can start to feel like an expectation later. As a relationship gets deeper, it requires more openness, more showing your soft spots. That deeper connection, which is normal for many, can make the independent person feel very scared and trigger their defenses.
So the very thing that drew them in, the closeness, eventually becomes the thing that makes them pull away. That must be incredibly confusing and painful for both people. The book mentions a familiar rhythm where the independent person responds to closeness rather than starting it. How does that tie in?
It's about feeling in control. Starting closeness means admitting you want it, which can feel risky. If you choose partners who always reach out first, you can stay in a role where you just respond. You can take what's offered and still control how much you give. It feels manageable. But when the partner later asks you to also take steps towards emotional closeness, the independent person can feel lost or even angry because the original structure has changed. They are not used to pursuing.
That makes so much sense. It feels safe as long as they don't have to initiate. And then the book talks about how this often comes up when a partner asks for a reassurance, like, are we serious? Or do you love me? The independent person might enjoy the enthusiasm early on, but these questions can later feel like demands.
Yes, those questions ask for emotional opening up, which feels like too much pressure. The independent person might then become distant or irritated. The partner feels unsafe and reaches even harder, which makes the independent person feel more pressured and pull away more. It becomes a cycle, and neither person wanted it to go that way. Also, sometimes this attraction is because closeness seeking is familiar, echoing demanding caregivers, which draws them in but also alarms them.
So it's like a feedback loop where each person's attempt to feel safe actually makes the other feel less safe. That sounds incredibly frustrating. The book also suggests that this attraction to closeness-seeking partners can come from a wish for someone else to do the emotional work they struggle with.
That's a key part of it. If an independent person has trouble naming their feelings or shuts down during arguments, they might be drawn to someone who talks easily about emotions or insists on solving problems. There's a quiet hope that the other person will make the emotional side of life easier. Also, for someone who has been emotionally unseen, the partner noticing small shifts can feel precious.
But there's a catch, isn't there? The book says the problem comes when the independent person feels they depend on the other for emotional connection, because dependence can feel like danger. And in long-term relationships, the partner who wants closeness often becomes the emotional center, initiating all the talks about feelings or solving problems. What happens then?
The independent person might go along sometimes, but other times they pull away. Over time, the closeness-seeking partner can feel very tired and annoyed because they feel like they're responsible for all the connecting. The independent person can feel pressured and not good enough, like they're always failing. Both end up feeling alone, and what started as relief can feel like a trap.
It's a tough situation for both sides. The book also brings up that sometimes this attraction is due to familiarity, echoing childhood experiences where caregivers might have been emotionally demanding. So a partner who wants closeness might unconsciously feel familiar, both drawing them in and alarming them at the same time.
That's right. The independent person might be drawn to it because it feels familiar, but also alarmed because it feels like losing their freedom. So the attraction isn't always healthy. Sometimes it's just familiarity dressed up as a strong connection. The book mentions that the independent person's inner thoughts become very important here. They might tell themselves the partner is special, which could be true, but they also might feel suffocated, which also could be true. Both feelings can exist at the same time because the relationship touches both their wishes for connection and their fears. This really highlights the complexity.
And for the closeness-seeking partner, this pattern is heartbreaking. They might feel that their love drew the person in, and then that very love pushes them away. They start to doubt themselves, thinking they are too much. They might even try to be less expressive to keep the independent person close, which causes them pain because their way of loving isn't a flaw. Understanding this protects their self-worth.
It certainly clarifies that the independent person's pulling back is usually about fear, not about the partner being unlovable. And for the independent person, the book says the work isn't to stop wanting closeness. It's about learning how to be close without losing themselves. What does that mean in simple terms?
It means learning to talk about their need for space without making the other person feel bad for wanting closeness. And it means learning to accept love without feeling like it's a big duty. For example, when overwhelmed, they can gently say they care, but need space to reset, and then set a time to connect again.
So clear communication makes a huge difference. The partner feels safer because they know there's a plan, and the independent person feels safer because they have their freedom. This way, both the desire for closeness and the need for space can exist without feeling like a threat. This is a powerful shift.
Absolutely. It shows that being drawn to partners who want closeness isn't confusing or contradictory. It shows they're simply human. They want warmth and connection like anyone else, but their past makes closeness feel risky. Understanding this helps everyone see the hope in it and the work it requires so relationships can become steady.
Moving to our next point, the book talks about the cycle of pursuit and withdrawal. This sounds like a trap where two normal human needs collide. Can you explain this cycle in simple terms?
Imagine two people trying to feel safe in different ways. One person feels safe when they are close and connected, and they reach out for that. The other person feels safe when they have space, so they reach for space. Neither person wants to hurt the other, but the more each tries to get their own kind of safety, the more unsafe the relationship can feel for both.
So the person who pursues usually wants to feel connected again. When they feel a distance, they get a bit uneasy. They might not call it fear, but they feel an urgent need to talk, to make things clear, to feel reassured. They ask questions, want more time together, want emotional presence. They're not trying to control, just to get that closeness back so they can relax.
Exactly. On the other side, the independent person who withdraws usually wants to feel calm inside again. When they feel emotional pressure, they feel crowded. They might not call it fear either, but they get a tightening inside that tells them to get away. They get quiet, change the subject, get busy, or just shut down. They're not trying to punish. They just want to lessen the strong feeling so they can feel in control again.
So the cycle starts. One person feels a small bit of disconnection, like a text that's late or a quiet evening. The pursuing partner notices this and reaches out. They ask, "What's wrong?" The independent person experiences this reaching as pressure, even if it's gentle. Then they pull away to get rid of that pressure. The pursuing partner feels the withdrawal as rejection and gets more worried, leading to more pursuit. The independent partner feels more crowded and withdraws even more. It just gets faster.
A common example, the independent partner comes home tired and quiet. The other partner asks if they're okay. The independent person says they're fine. The partner senses something is off and asks again, wanting an honest talk. The independent person feels interrogated and gets annoyed. The partner feels hurt and tries even harder to talk. The independent person shuts down or leaves the room. Both end the evening feeling alone.
That's a very clear picture of how quickly it can spiral. And a painful part of this, as the book highlights, is that both partners feel unseen. The pursuing partner is often trying to express a need for closeness, but the avoidant partner hears criticism. The avoidant partner is trying to express a need for space, but the pursuing partner hears rejection. It's like they're speaking different safety languages.
Yes, that's it. One says closeness equals safety. The other says space equals safety. When those two ideas about safety clash, the relationship can feel like a constant misunderstanding. The cycle is intensified because many independent people have trouble expressing feelings in the moment. When asked what's wrong, they might genuinely not have the words, just feeling overwhelmed and blank.
And the pursuing partner might see that blankness as not wanting to talk. So they press for answers, which makes the independent person feel even more pressure and pull away further. This isn't just about needing space then, but also about the independent person's limited access to emotional language under stress.
Exactly. The silence also makes things worse for the pursuing partner. For many, silence feels dangerous because it signals disconnection. They start imagining stories about what the silence means. Are they losing interest? Hiding something? Going to leave? These thoughts increase anxiety, and more anxiety means more pursuit. The avoidant person feels even more crowded.
And then the independent person feels even more crowded. They might get defensive, which just confirms the pursuing partner's fear that something is wrong. So, silence feels threatening, and questions feel threatening. It sounds very tiring for both.
It is. During conflict, the pursuing partner wants to resolve the issue quickly because unresolved conflict feels like distance. They want to talk until they feel connected again. The avoidant partner wants to pause because the intensity feels overwhelming. They want to stop talking to calm down. The pursuing partner sees the pause as avoidance, and the avoidant partner sees continued talking as pressure. The intensity escalates.
And both are trying to protect the relationship in their own way, but they end up creating more strain. This cycle also builds up resentment. The pursuing partner feels like they're doing all the emotional work, chasing connection and feeling humiliated by needing reassurance. They might start to doubt their own worth.
And the independent partner can start to feel that nothing they do is enough. They may feel that the relationship is a constant demand. They may begin to resent the partner's needs. Both forms of resentment make the cycle stronger because resentment reduces kindness, which is what interrupts the loop.
So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, as the book describes it. If the independent person already believes that relationships become demanding, the pursuit confirms that belief. They think, "This is why I need space," and they withdraw. The pursuing partner then becomes more anxious, which feels like more demand. The independent person feels validated. They might even believe they'd be happier alone, but the pattern is the real problem, not the relationship itself.
Exactly. Breaking the cycle starts by understanding that both partners are trying to find safety. You can't just tell the pursuing partner to stop needing or the avoidant partner to stop withdrawing because both needs are real. The question is how to meet those needs without triggering the other person's fear. This is where communication about space becomes crucial.
So if an independent partner takes space without explaining, the pursuing partner's anxiety goes up. But if they take space with reassurance and a clear plan to return, the pursuing partner can calm down. And on the other side, if a pursuing partner expresses needs with urgency or accusation, the independent person feels trapped. But if they can express needs as gentle invitations, the independent person often feels less defensive.
Precisely. A healthy way to stop the cycle looks like this. The independent partner feels overwhelmed and says, I need a break, and I care about you, and I will come back in an hour. The pursuing partner still feels anxious, but can hold it because there's a return time and the clear sign of care. The break actually becomes a break, not a disappearing act. Later, they talk, and the pursuer speaks from their feelings, not blame, like saying they felt alone.
And later when they talk, the pursuing partner tries to speak about their own feelings instead of blaming. They say they felt alone. The independent partner listens and shares that they felt flooded. The talk then becomes less about who is wrong and more about what each person needs. That's a huge step.
It is. Another way to stop the cycle is for the independent partner to learn that staying present briefly can stop bigger conflict later. They might want to withdraw quickly for relief, but if they can tolerate a small amount of discomfort and offer a short reassurance, the pursuing partner often calms down. That calm reduces pressure, and less pressure makes it easier for the independent person to stay connected.
This isn't about forcing the independent person into endless emotional talks, but about recognizing that a little connection can prevent a lot of chasing. It also helps for the pursuing partner to know that pulling away is often not about love, but about the independent person trying to calm themselves down. They're not saying, you don't matter, but I can't handle this intensity right now.
When the pursuing partner can understand that, they can take things less personally. Less taking it personally means less panic, and less panic means less chasing. This does not mean accepting being abandoned, but they can respond with clearer boundaries and calmer requests instead of escalating emotion.
So the cycle of pursuit and withdrawal is a painful pattern, but it can change. When both people understand what's happening, they can respond differently. They can learn to offer space with reassurance and closeness without pressure. This sounds like building safety for both. The goal isn't to get rid of the desire for closeness or the need for space, but to create a love where both can live together.
That's exactly right. The next section in the book talks about the push away when things get serious. Many partners describe this as the moment the relationship seems to change really fast. Early on, the independent person might be very involved and loving, but as commitment gets more real, they start to pull back. Why does seriousness feel like a threat to someone who is independent, even if they truly love their partner?
That's a very common and heartbreaking experience. The book says seriousness usually means more expectations. It can mean talking about the future, meeting family, moving in together, or joining money. For many couples, these are normal steps, but for an independent person, these steps can feel like things are closing in.
Yes, the relationship starts to feel less like a daily choice and more like a structure they're stuck inside. That shift can trigger a fear of losing their freedom. If freedom has been their main way to feel safe, then seriousness can feel like danger. This fear doesn't always look like fear, though.
That's important. The book says independent people often feel fear as irritation, impatience, or a strong urge to get away. They might start finding fault, focusing on their partner's weaknesses, or thinking about what they're giving up. They might feel a strong need to be alone. These reactions are confusing because the relationship might be going well, and the partner might think the independent person never cared. But often the independent person cared a lot.
The issue is that caring more raises the stakes, and higher stakes make them put up their defenses. Imagine a couple dating for months. Everything is warm. The partner talks about moving in. The independent person agrees in the moment, perhaps to avoid an argument, and maybe even because they want closeness. But later, they feel a wave of panic. They imagine constant togetherness, constant expectation, and constant emotional responsibility.
They might not say this, but just become distant. The partner senses it and asks what's wrong, and the push away continues.
The partner senses it and asks what's wrong. The independent person feels pressured and pulls away more. The partner feels rejected. The independent person feels relief and guilt. So seriousness triggered a fear of being trapped. Another trigger the book mentions is the feeling of being needed. When a relationship gets serious, people rely on each other more, share decisions, and lean on each other. Why is this normal reliance a problem?
For an independent person, this sharing can feel like being responsible for someone else's happiness. Even if the partner isn't asking for that, the independent person might feel it. If they've learned that emotions create demands, seriousness can feel like the start of endless demands. They might push away to prevent dependence from forming.
And there's also the fear of being fully seen. Serious relationships invite deeper knowing. The partner starts to notice habits, moods, and weaknesses. If the independent person built their identity on being capable and in control, being seen in their messy parts can feel embarrassing. Seriousness makes them feel more exposed, so they create distance to get back their privacy. The partner sees this distance as a loss, but the independent person sees it as safety.
A common situation is meeting families. This can feel important and connecting. But for an independent person, it can feel like being under a bright light. They might feel evaluated or that commitment is now public, which creates pressure and activates defenses. They might get irritable or pull away, often without knowing why, because seriousness activates the fear of being trapped in expectations.
The book also brings up a belief that love shouldn't require so much effort. Many independent people have this idea that if a relationship is right, it will feel easy and not very demanding. Why do they hold on to this belief?
It's often a protective story. It allows them to leave when intimacy gets hard without facing fear. When things get serious, every relationship needs more talking and repair. The independent person might see this as a sign they aren't a good fit. They might say the relationship is too hard or they're not meant for this. They push away because they think it's the sensible response to a demanding relationship.
And this can be even stronger when the partner starts to state their needs more clearly. Seriousness often encourages partners to say what they want, like, I want more consistency, or I want clearer commitment. These are fair requests, but the independent person might hear them as demands, feel criticized, or feel like they're failing.
Shame rises. Shame can be unbearable, so the independent person pushes away to protect dignity. The partner feels at the moment they ask for more, the independent person gives less. That's the heartbreak of this pattern. For example, if a partner says, I want to know where this is going, the independent person feels cornered and might give vague answers or say they don't like labels.
And then the partner feels unsure and asks again later. The independent person gets irritated and says the partner is pressuring them. The partner feels rejected. The independent person feels relief by creating distance. So seriousness turns into a fight, even though both people just want to feel secure. This push away is also tied to their body's reaction to intimacy, isn't it?
Yes. As closeness grows, the independent person might feel overstimulated or have less room to breathe and process emotions privately. They fear losing solitude, which is how they calm down. Seriousness can feel like the end of solitude, so they push away to reclaim it. If they don't know how to ask for solitude without sounding rejecting, the push away becomes abrupt.
So healing this isn't about avoiding serious commitment, but about learning how to bring it in slowly, with good communication. Independent people often need reassurance that commitment won't take away their freedom, and that being serious doesn't mean constant togetherness. They need space to process, and they need to learn to say those needs clearly, because partners can't read minds.
The book gives an example of growth. The independent person notices fear rising when a partner brings up a serious step. Instead of withdrawing, they say, I care about you and this is important to me. I also feel overwhelmed and I need time to think. They suggest a time to revisit the conversation. The partner feels reassured because the independent person isn't disappearing. The independent person feels safer because they are not being forced.
Over time, experiences like this teach the independent person that seriousness can be handled without losing control, and it teaches the partner that space can be given without losing the relationship. It also helps to understand that the partner's desire for seriousness is usually about wanting security, not about trying to trap them. When independent people see seriousness as control, they get defensive. But when they see it as wanting stability, they can respond with more understanding.
They can offer reassurance without needing to commit fully right away. They can say what they can offer now and what they need to consider. This builds trust. The push away when things get serious is driven by fears of losing autonomy, being needed, being seen, and being trapped in expectations. It might look like a loss of love, but it is often the opposite. Love getting real enough to feel dangerous. Understanding this reduces shame and self-blame.
That's a very helpful way to frame it. Let's move on to how independent people handle conflict. The book says this is where attachment patterns become very clear because conflict makes fears rise. What kind of fears are we talking about here?
Yes, the partner might feel that calm without actually fixing anything isn't real peace, it's disconnection. A common scenario is when a partner says something hurt them. The independent person listens briefly, then starts explaining why it wasn't meant that way, or why it shouldn't be taken personally. The partner often feels dismissed, becomes more emotional, and the avoidant person withdraws, ending with both feeling unheard.
The independent person might think the partner is overreacting, and the partner might think the independent person is cold. But the deeper truth is that the independent person is trying to protect themselves from the vulnerability of admitting impact. The book also points out that conflict can trigger shame for independent people, especially if they grew up with a lot of criticism or high expectations. If someone says you hurt them, it can feel like being told you are failing. If your identity is built around being competent and in control, failing feels unbearable. Shame can rise quickly, and shame often shows up as defensiveness. The avoidant person might argue, correct details, or focus on logic, acting cold, all while trying to escape the feeling of being inadequate.
Another common avoidant conflict response is shutdown. Shutdown isn't always a choice. It can feel like the mind goes blank and the body wants out. They might stop speaking, look away, or give short answers, appearing detached. This can feel like punishment to the partner, who gets more urgent, which increases the avoidant person's overwhelm, strengthening the shutdown. The relationship gets stuck, where one person talks more and the other gets quieter, making both more distressed.
Independent people also use withdrawal as a conflict strategy, which can be physical, like leaving, or emotional, like being distant for days. Withdrawal brings immediate relief by reducing intensity, but the partner experiences it as a threat, leading to pursuit, which intensifies avoidance. They might feel they have to chase the independent person to get back in touch, which can make the independent person avoid even more. The cycle grows. The conflict becomes less about the original problem and more about this pattern of disconnecting. An example the book gives: a couple argues, the independent partner says they need space and leaves or goes silent. The partner feels anxious and sends messages, and the avoidant person feels crowded and ignores them.
The partner then feels rejected and gets more emotional. The avoidant person feels overwhelmed and retreats further. Both are trying to feel safe. The partner needs connection. The avoidant person needs space. Without a clear agreement about space in return, conflict becomes a repeating loop.
It sounds like a fundamental mismatch in how they process things. Independent people also tend to focus on facts rather than feelings during conflict. This can make them seem cold, but it often comes from a deep belief that emotions are dangerous. Facts feel controllable, feelings feel unpredictable. If you grew up where emotions led to shame or escalation, you trust facts more. In an argument, they might argue about what happened, when, and what was said. Meanwhile, their partner is trying to communicate how it felt. The two conversations miss each other. The partner feels invalidated. The avoidant person feels unfairly accused. The conflict becomes a debate rather than a repair. The independent person might then try to casually reconnect, hoping the issue is over, but the partner might still be hurting. The independent person gets confused because they are now ready to engage, but the timing doesn't match. This timing mismatch can cause repeated conflict because the partner wants immediate engagement and the avoidant person needs time.
And repair, making things right after a fight, is hard for independent people because repair requires staying emotionally present long enough to understand impact. It requires acknowledging feelings even if you don't fully agree. Many independent people fear that acknowledging feelings means admitting guilt or surrendering control.
They might resist making up because they fear being blamed. The partner then feels the avoidant person never takes responsibility. The avoidant person may feel that the partner is never satisfied. Both feel stuck. One healing approach is for the avoidant person to name overwhelm, say, "I need a short break and I will come back," which gives space and a promise of return, reducing partner fear.
That's a key difference. It gives the independent person space and gives the partner a promise of return, reducing the partner's fear. It also reduces pressure for the independent person because they don't have to handle everything at once.
When they return, they can focus on one emotional truth, like, I hear that you felt alone. They don't have to fix everything, they just have to be present.
Healthy conflict handling for independent people also involves learning that repair is not humiliation. It is love in action. It is the willingness to stay engaged when it's uncomfortable. For someone who fears shame, this is hard, but reframing repair as strength. Strong to apologize, strong to listen, strong to admit impact helps, as these aren't signs of losing control, but of emotional maturity.
Partners also play a role in how conflict unfolds. If a partner approaches an argument with urgency, accusation, or a long list of grievances, avoidant defenses intensify. This doesn't mean the partner is wrong to be hurt, but the way conflict is delivered matters. A calmer approach, focusing on one issue with a softer tone, can make it easier for an avoidant person to stay present. But the avoidant person also needs to take responsibility for learning to tolerate emotional discomfort instead of disappearing.
Both people can create a safer space for conflict. How independent people handle conflict is shaped by their history, shame relationship, and need for control. Their typical strategies, minimizing facts of our feelings, shut down, and withdraw, bring short-term relief and long-term disconnection. When these are understood, they can change. The goal is to stay connected through conflict, where intimacy can grow instead of love disappearing.
That's a very hopeful way to look at something that feels so challenging for many. Let's talk about mixed signals that confuse partners, which is another section in the book. Why is this confusion so common in relationships with independent people?
Mixed signals aren't always on purpose. They are often the outward shape of an inner conflict. An independent person may want closeness and fear it at the same time. They may feel warmth and pressure. They may love someone and also need to protect their independence. When those opposing forces are active, behavior can shift quickly, which partners see as inconsistency, feeling pulled in and pushed away.
And over time, this can create deep uncertainty and tiredness, even when both people care. The book says mixed signals often start with a real connection. Many independent people can be very engaged early on, texting often, planning dates, being affectionate, sharing more than usual. This closeness feels safe at first because expectations are low. The independent person can enjoy the warmth and the partner feels valued, but then something shifts, doesn't it?
Yes, the relationship deepens, or the partner expresses a need, or they talk about a future plan, and the independent person's fear is triggered. They pull back. The partner feels confused because the closeness felt real, and it was real. The problem is that real closeness can activate fear in an independent person. For example, after a very connected weekend, the independent person might become distant for several days, responding slowly.
The partner tries to understand, asks if something is wrong. The independent person says nothing is wrong. The partner feels dismissed because something clearly shifted. The independent person might truly believe they are fine, just overwhelmed and needing space. The mixed signal is that their body wants distance while their words deny any issue, leaving the partner uncertain.
Mixed signals also show up in a push-pull rhythm of affection. An independent person might initiate closeness when lonely or safe, reaching out with warmth. Then, when closeness grows, they may feel trapped and withdraw. The partner sees the reaching out as an invitation to bond, and the withdrawal as rejection. The avoidant person sees the initiation as longing, and the withdrawal as a need to breathe. Both feelings are real. The misunderstanding comes from not talking about what's happening inside. Mixed signals can also come from the independent person's slow way of processing emotions. They often don't know what they feel in the moment. They might agree to plans or seem calm during conflict, but later they might feel pressure or too many feelings, causing their behavior to change.
Their behavior then changes. They might cancel plans, get irritable, or distance. The partner sees this as unpredictability. The avoidant person sees it as realizing their limits. If they don't communicate these limits, the partner guesses, and mixed signals grow. For future planning, if the avoidant agrees casually to a trip but later fears the commitment implied, they pull back, which the partner experiences as mixed signals. The partner feels rejected. The independent person feels trapped. Underneath, the independent person might have agreed before fully processing how much commitment and togetherness the trip means. When that sinks in, fear rises, causing distance. The partner experiences this backing out as mixed signals.
Mixed signals also appear in communication patterns. Many independent people are present in person but distant over text, disappearing between meetings. Partners see this as lack of interest. The independent person may see it as normal independence. If the partner worries, the gap feels like emotional danger, leading to more pursuit, which pressures the independent person. The mixed signals become part of a bigger cycle.
Another source of mixed signals is the independent person's discomfort with emotional reassurance. They might show love through actions, but struggle with words, avoiding saying it. Partners who need verbal reassurance might feel starving, receiving practical love, but not emotional closeness, leading to confusion about the relationship's meaning.
Mixed signals arise because the love is present but not in a consistent emotional language. They can also come from shame. After feeling close, the independent person may feel embarrassed for how much it mattered, thinking they seemed needy. Shame then triggers withdrawal, which the partner feels as a sudden chill, but the avoidant person feels as regaining dignity. The signal is that intimacy leads to loss.
The mixed signal is that their closeness is followed by disappearing, which teaches the partner that intimacy leads to loss. This can make the partner cautious or worried. A common example: the independent person shares something personal one night, and the partner responds with warmth. The next day, the independent person acts cold. The partner wonders if they did something wrong, but underneath, they might feel vulnerable and want to restore control.
The mixed signal isn't about the partner. It's about the independent person's discomfort with being seen. Mixed signals undermine trust, which is about predictability. The partner becomes hypervigilant, analyzing texts, and may start to doubt their own perceptions, damaging self-worth, perhaps believing they are too much or not enough, and start shrinking themselves.
They might believe they are too much or not enough. They might try to shrink themselves to avoid making the independent person pull away. And that shrinking is often very painful. For the independent person, mixed signals can cause guilt and confusion. They don't want to hurt anyone. They genuinely care. They might feel ashamed when their partner is hurt, but also annoyed that their partner wants more.
The independent person can feel trapped between wanting to give love and wanting to protect their freedom. The more trapped they feel, the more inconsistent they become, which creates more partner anxiety, which creates more pressure. Healing mixed signals starts with being clear about space and connection.
Mixed signals become less confusing when the independent person talks about their need for space in a warm, clear way. A simple sentence like, "I enjoyed our time and I need some quiet time today, but I will call you tonight," can greatly reduce worry. It turns disappearing into a boundary with a promise to return, telling the partner the closeness was real.
In growth, an independent person might feel overwhelmed after closeness and tell their partner they need a day to reset, reassuring them they care and giving a clear time to reconnect. The partner feels disappointed, but safer. The independent person feels less trapped because they don't have to disappear silently. Over time, this reduces the partner's pursuit and the independent person's fear.
It also helps partners to stop seeing mixed signals as proof that they are not worthy. Mixed signals are usually about the independent person's inner fight, not about the partner being too much. Partners still have the right to have needs and boundaries. Still, understanding where the signals come from can protect their self-worth. They can hold the truth that the independent person's distance often reflects fear, not dislike.
Mixed signals were painful because they create unpredictability, pulling the partner into uncertainty and the independent person into guilt. The solution is not forcing constant closeness, but building reliable connection and reliable space. When space is communicated and return is promised, the relationship becomes safer. When closeness is offered without pressure and received without shame, the independent person can stay present long.
Over time, mixed signals soften into clearer signals, and love becomes less confusing for both people. Let's turn our attention now to the section on fear of dependence and control. This fear is a core part of the independent attachment style. The book says many independent people don't fear love in a simple way, but they often fear what love can ask of them. What does this mean?
It means they fear being needed endlessly. They fear being depended on in a way that erases their freedom. They fear that if they accept comfort, they will owe something they can't repay. They fear that if they commit, they will be controlled. These fears make intimacy feel like a trap, even when they want connection. Understanding this fear is key because it drives withdrawal.
Dependence is a tricky word. It can mean unhealthy reliance, but it can also mean healthy reliance, where people lean on each other. The book says that for an independent person, even healthy reliance can feel threatening. Why is that?
Because their early life often linked reliance with risk. If needing was shameful, dependence feels humiliating. If needing brought disappointment, dependence feels dangerous. If closeness brought pressure, dependence feels suffocating. This fear isn't irrational, it's rooted in experience. When a partner's needs appear, the avoidant system interprets it as dependence, triggering alarm.
Fear of control often grows alongside fear of dependence. If a child felt controlled through guilt or pressure, they learn closeness can take away autonomy. Even in loving families, control can appear subtly, like making the child responsible for a parent's mood. The child learns to protect autonomy as safety. In adulthood, this means being sensitive to requests, especially emotional ones. Requests can feel like demands. They might see a request like daily check-ins as surveillance or obligation, fearing they lose the choice of when to connect. They pull away or resist. The partner feels rejected and presses harder. The avoidant person feels more controlled and pulls away further. Both seek safety. Partner safety from consistency, avoidant safety from autonomy. This fear also affects how independent people receive care. Care can feel like a hook. They fear accepting care creates debt, which feels like obligation, which feels like control. So they refuse care, saying they don't need help, or feeling uncomfortable when someone's kind. The partner might see this as rejection.
Underneath, the independent person might be protecting themselves from being beholden. This fear often shows up after vulnerability. If they allow comfort, they may later feel uneasy, thinking they gave away too much or that the partner will now expect more. This worry leads to withdrawal. The partner feels hurt, the avoidant feels relief. Closeness is wanted, then feared.
This fear also shapes how independent people respond to their partner's feelings. A partner crying can feel like an invitation to emotional caretaking. The independent person might fear that role will never end, that they'll be responsible for making the partner okay. Even if not asked, they experience emotion as demand, so they freeze, minimize, or pull away. The partner feels abandoned, and the independent person feels overwhelmed and guilty. Emotional moments feel heavy because they feel being pulled into a role, taking away autonomy. In conflict, if a partner says, "I need you to be here with me," the avoidant hears, "You must fix this," feels controlled, and shuts down. The partner gets desperate, and the avoidant gets distant. The cycle deepens.
Underneath, the independent person might be afraid of failing or being trapped in emotional responsibility. The partner might be afraid of being left alone. Both fears are real. This pattern is painful because each person's safety strategy triggers the other person's fear. This fear also affects commitment, which involves shared decisions. An independent person may fear losing choice or commitment becoming obligation. They might hesitate or pull away when things get serious. The partner feels unwanted, the avoidant feels trapped. The fear is about commitment's meaning, not the partner. Healing starts by separating dependence from control. In healthy relationships, reliance is mutual and doesn't erase autonomy. You can rely and still be free.
You can be committed and still have your own self. Many independent people haven't experienced this balanced reliance enough to trust it. They may have experienced dependence as having a high emotional price. To heal, they need experiences where needs are expressed without pressure and boundaries are respected without punishment. In growth, an independent person can say, I want to support you, and I also need to know what you are asking for.
This sentence slows down the panic and turns emotion into a clearer request. The partner might say they want comfort, not solutions. The avoidant can offer comfort in a small, doable way, like sitting close. The avoidant learns presence doesn't mean control. The partner learns asking clearly reduces distance. The fear softens through lived experience.
It also helps for the independent person to practice receiving care without feeling it creates debt. This might start with allowing small things like letting a partner make tea when tired. They practice saying thank you without repaying immediately. They learn care can be freely given. It doesn't have to become a leash. They also learn to set boundaries if care is used to control.
The fear of dependence and control is a deep root because it touches autonomy and safety. It can make closeness feel like a threat, even when the heart longs for connection. When you understand this fear, you can stop treating it as irrational and see it as a protective signal. Then you can build relationships with both connection and freedom, learning to rely without being trapped.
You can learn to accept care without losing yourself. You can learn that closeness doesn't have to mean control. When that learning takes root, the relationship becomes less of a battleground between closeness and freedom, and more of a home where both can exist.
That's a powerful idea, a home where both can exist. Our final section is about the paradox of wanting love but resisting it. Can you explain this paradox simply?
Many independent people want love deeply. Partnership, warmth, to feel chosen. They crave a steady bond. But when love is offered in a way that asks for vulnerability, they pull back. The partner sees rejection, the avoidant sees self-protection. Both can be true, making the paradox painful.
Wanting love is human. It isn't outgrown by independence. For avoidants, this wanting often lives quietly. They might not admit it, but it shows in seeking companionship and having a private ache when alone. The wanting is real and steady. Resisting love is also real, usually because early on, closeness was linked with risk like shame or control.
This paradox is clear in vulnerability. When the partner is emotional, the independent person might want to help, but feel overwhelmed by emotional responsibility. They fear becoming the caretaker of the partner's feelings, so they resist by withdrawing, minimizing, or shutting down. The partner feels abandoned, and the avoidant feels relief and guilt.
Resisting love can also show up after good moments. After a tender evening, the independent person might feel the urge to withdraw the next day. Closeness can create a feeling of exposure, triggering shame or fear. Withdrawal restores privacy and control. The partner experiences this as mixed signals. The avoidant experiences it as breathing. Partners often respond with pursuit, wanting more warmth, which usually intensifies avoidant resistance. The more the partner presses, the more trapped the avoidant feels, and the more they withdraw. The partner feels more rejected and presses harder. Healing begins with naming the paradox without shame. I want love, and I fear it.
When you see both sides inside, you can stop acting on fear alone. You can slow down and communicate. I care, and I feel overwhelmed. You can say, I want closeness, and I need space. These sentences hold the paradox without destroying the relationship.
In growth, when the urge to withdraw rises after closeness, instead of disappearing, the avoidant says, closeness is comforting and scary, asks for a day to reset, and reassures they will reconnect. The partner feels safer with clarity, and the avoidant feels safer with space. The paradox becomes manageable because it is named.
For partners, healing means understanding resistance is usually fear, not lack of love. This doesn't mean tolerating neglect, but protecting self-worth by not seeing avoidance as proof they are unlovable. Calm invitations work better than urgent emotional dominance.
When both people respond skillfully, the relationship becomes safer. The paradox isn't a sign they are bad partners. It's a sign closeness felt risky due to early learning. The path forward is building a relationship where closeness is offered without pressure and space is taken without abandonment. Resistance softens when vulnerability is met with respect.
When the partner learns distance is often fear, they protect their self-worth and respond with clearer boundaries. Over time, the paradox lessens because love becomes safer and wanting love no longer fights so hard against fear.
Well, our final section is about why partners feel rejected but aren't the problem. This is crucial because feeling rejected hurts your self-worth. If you love someone with an independent style, you may feel shut out. It's natural to wonder if you are asking for too much or if you are unlovable.
The book offers a steadier truth. The rejection you feel is real in its effect, but not always proof you are the problem. Partners feel rejected because independent behaviors often look like personal disinterest. When someone goes quiet, avoids eye contact, or changes the subject when you share feelings, it's hard not to take it personally. Love should make you feel chosen, but these behaviors can make you feel unwanted. The independent person may just be trying to regulate overwhelm or protect vulnerability. Still, intention doesn't erase impact. You can feel rejected because a behavior creates distance, and distance is painful in attachment.
A common example, you share something tender like missing them or feeling lonely. Your partner responds with a short answer, a joke, or silence. You feel your stomach drop. Your partner pulls away more and you feel worse. In this moment, their withdrawal is likely about discomfort with vulnerability, pressure, or shame. But your experience is still rejection because your bid for closeness didn't land.
Partners also feel rejected because independent people often show love indirectly, being loyal, responsible, and helpful in practical ways. But when it comes to emotional reassurance or affectionate words, they struggle. If you need emotional attunement, practical support might not satisfy that deeper need, making the absence feel like rejection.
Another reason partners feel rejected is because independent people often need space after closeness. You might have a wonderful date and then your partner becomes distant the next day. That shift can feel like being punished for closeness because intimacy made them pull away. In reality, closeness activates their fear and they need time to regain control.
A common example, after a connected weekend, you text your partner and get minimal responses. You feel anxious and ask if something is wrong. They say nothing is wrong. You feel confused because the energy changed. Your partner might feel crowded by your questions and withdraw further. The pattern is painful and it is easy to conclude you are the problem. The steadier truth is you are reacting to inconsistent closeness.
Partners feel rejected because independent people often respond poorly to emotional requests. When you say, "I need more closeness," the avoidant partner may hear, "You are failing." They might respond defensively or say, "You are too needy." That response feels like rejection of your feelings and self, making you doubt your right to have needs. The problem isn't your needs, it's that needs feel like danger to your partner.
It is important to say clearly that you are not responsible for your partner's avoidance. You didn't create their style or make them fear dependence. You may trigger the pattern by wanting closeness, but triggering is not causing. Wanting closeness is not wrong. If your partner withdraws, that's about their coping style, not your worth. This matters because partners often internalize rejection and start believing they are too much.
They start shrinking themselves to keep their relationship alive. One common situation, you stop bringing up needs because every time you do, your partner withdraws. You tell yourself you're being easygoing, but inside you feel lonely and start accepting unmet needs, potentially leading to resentment. This is how partners get harmed. The partner's not the problem, but they start treating themselves like they are.
Partners also feel rejected because independent people can seem emotionally fine after conflict. After a fight, the avoidant person might act as if nothing happened, not apologizing or bringing it up, while the partner still hurts. The avoidance calm can feel like indifference, but they might be avoiding their own shame and overwhelm.
Still, for the partner, the lack of repair feels like emotional abandonment, making them feel alone.
Partners may also feel rejected because they often become the emotional initiator, the one who tries to talk, repair, or create closeness. Over time, this can feel humiliating, like chasing someone who doesn't choose you back.
The truth is, the relationship may be real, but the avoidant person's defenses make visible love difficult. The partner feels rejected because love isn't expressed mutually. You are not the problem because your need for connection is normal and worthy. You may become anxious reacting to inconsistency, but that reaction comes from feeling unsafe, not from being the cause.
Healing for partners starts with reclaiming self-worth. You can hold the truth that your partner's avoidance is about their fear, not your value. You deserve a relationship where your needs matter. This is where boundaries come in. Understanding doesn't mean tolerating neglect. You can ask for clear communication about space and for repair.
You can ask for reassurance calmly, and you can also decide that if those things are consistently unavailable, you will protect yourself. In healthier interaction, you express a need simply, and the avoidant expresses a need for space with a clear plan for return. Both feel more secure, and the pattern becomes less triggering.
Partners feel rejected because avoidant behavior creates distance when connection is most needed. They interpret that distance as personal rejection because that's what distance feels like in love. The partner is not the problem because the need for closeness is normal and worthy. Understanding this helps you stop blaming yourself and protect your self-worth while deciding what relationship you want.
If your partner is willing to grow, this understanding starts a healthier bond. If not, it still protects you, reminding you that your longing for closeness is worthy and deserves steadiness. This knowledge is the key to moving forward, whether together or apart.
This has been an incredibly insightful discussion. We've covered so much ground today, exploring the different facets of independent attachment and how it impacts relationships, all drawing from Mindy Rivers' book, Understanding the Dismissive Avoidant Attachment Style. This understanding truly offers a path forward for both individuals and couples seeking healthier connections.
Indeed, the core message is that by understanding these patterns, we can approach love and connection with more compassion and strategy, moving from cycles of hurt to moments of genuine connection and growth. It's about recognizing that both space and closeness are vital needs that can coexist.
If you found this conversation helpful, share this episode with someone who might benefit from hearing these insights.